I have with me three eminent speakers, Mr. Shomo Chatterjee, the Global Head of Engineering and Consulting, TCS, Mr. Ankur Basu, a Director with the Technology Consulting Practice of PwC India, and Dr. Indranil Mitra, who is on the Academic Advisory Board of JG University. And I'm currently working with PwC India as a director in its marketing and communications team. Now, I'd like to request them to briefly introduce themselves before we take up today's topic for discussion, building a successful tech career in these turbulent times. Over to you, Mr. Shomu Chatterjee.
Thank you very much. So my name is Shomu Chatterjee, and the name says Shomu means calm and quiet. So my parents had really high hope on me. Didn't work, but that's fine. I heads that engineering and the consulting globally from TCS perspective with respect to cloud. So again, I have 25 years of experience in industry, becoming older. So love to talk to all of you to become younger. So that's the whole intention. Thank you.
Thank you, Shomo. We can move on to Mr. Ankur Basu. Ankur, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Yes, thanks, Vishnupriya. Good afternoon, friends. Hope you're all staying at home and staying safe. I'm Ankur Basu, and I lead the industrial IoT practice at PwC. Pretty much last 23 years, I've been working with manufacturing, heavy engineering, and large capital projects. My responsibility entails solving real-life industrial challenges on a day-to-day basis using emerging technologies like IoT and machine learning, and these are the topics that we will delve into further today. I'm also responsible within PwC for nurturing fresh recruits and put them on either live projects or research and development in our IoT lab. I take great interest in topics like Industry 4.0, smart factory, connected enterprises, etc. Today, I'm extremely privileged and excited to be speaking to you. Thank you very much.
Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Indranil Mitra. Thank you for joining today's webinar, the first in the series, as Vishnupriya said, from JG University. My name is Dr. Indranil Mitra, as I said, and I have 2 decades of experience in management consulting, innovation, technology consulting. I've focused mainly on data analytics and digital transformation. It is great to speak to so many young minds today, and we hope that we bring some value to you and interest you to take up some projects, courses, education in these new emerging areas of digital. Thank you.
Thank you, Indranil, for that introduction. Now, it goes without saying that these are undoubtedly unprecedented times where we are faced with disruption because of this black swan event. There is an economic downturn, we are all aware of that, and the entire world is under siege with physical distancing and social distancing becoming the norm. And that, in a way, has actually accelerated the advent of the 4th industrial revolution, or Industry 4.0, as we commonly know it as. Now, given the scenario, obviously technology has come to play an indispensable role in our lives, both personally and professionally. We are all sitting here talking to you, interacting with you, trying to engage with you, and that's only possible because of technology. And yet we are within the confines of our home. So technology in that sense has provided us with a virtual lifeline. And even with physical distancing and isolation, the good thing is that we are not alone. Technology has ensured that we are all in it together. So therefore, like it or not, everyone across the board has had to embrace technology, be it for socializing, be it for entertainment, be it for working remotely from home to ensure business continuity. Now, what we've done is we've divided this session into actually 3 parts. And since we would like to engage with you, what we are doing here is we will give you 3 polling questions, and we'd like you to provide your responses. So in the first part, you will get to see a polling question come up on the screen, and we give you about 20 to 30 seconds to respond to this before we take the discussion forward. Simultaneously, we would also like you to put in some questions in the chat box that you see up there so that we can take it up at the end of the discussion. So we will give you about 2-3 more seconds to just put in your answers to this question. If the recession in economy worsens in these COVID-19 times, will you be able to accelerate your career with your current skills? So we'd like you to provide your opinion on this before we take this discussion forward. So yes, we've got your answers. Thank you so much for responding to the question. So as you can see, most of you say if the recession in economy worsens in these COVID times, you will be able to accelerate your career with your current skills. And that is actually a very encouraging sign, because 52% of you have said that you will be able to accelerate your career with these skill sets that you have. But at the same time, I feel it would also be important to upskill, because being relevant in these current times means that you have to constantly update yourself so that this agility can serve you in good stead in the coming days, in the days ahead. Now, going by your response to this reaction, you will see that what our speakers would tell you, going by your response, is what is it? I mean, apart from the fact that technology is important, what are the relevance? What is the relevance of these emerging technologies in the current scenario, and what are the technology skills that can help you to excel and stay relevant in the current time?
I think Vishnupriya's question is very interesting. So if you talk about a medical science 25 years back, we yet to find a medical practitioner who is actually an expert in one line. So we go to a doctor who treats everything, right? And then what happens that you go to a doctor with a arm only or a brain only, right? Kind of stuff. So that's a specialization perspective of that. So what I personally feel, it is extremely, extremely important to have both mixture. But if you see in the medical also, you know the overall, and then one particular area you will be an expert. So you have to have a right blend of your general skill, suppose a mathematics, right? You should have a great analytical power if you really want to do successful in this field. At the same time, you wanted to take, suppose I'm a head of engineering, from architecting some of the cloud enterprises. So your depth of knowledge in that has to be very much. So it's a T-shaped expertise, what you actually need. The top portion of the T, actually the horizontal breadth of your knowledge, and the T portion is one particular area. You have to be really expert in this. So that's the way I defined the mixture of generalistic approach and an expertise. It has to be the right mix of that.
Okay. And what about the current scenario? I mean, do you think, our students, our participants here are very confident that their skill sets will actually be of use and it will be relevant in the days to come? So do you have any word of advice or any word of caution for them, so that they aren't that complacent in their understanding and in their knowledge?
So I want to say I love their confidence. At the same time, I think so you have to be ready to accept anything which is coming to you. So I love it that you think that your current skill will actually help you, but you take it from me, after 5 years, you will yet to hear some new technology which are completely new. So you have to be adaptive to the situations, that you should know how to take the new things on your plate and innovate on top of that. So it is good that you're confident. At the same time, you just be ready with the unknown part of that.
Thank you so much for that. We move on to Ankur now, and we'd like him to tell us what are the technology skills that can help one excel and stay relevant in the current times. What, according to you, are those particular skill sets that they need to acquire?
Right, right. So since I work closely with the industry, let me try giving some industrial perspective. COVID-19 situation has surely taken the industry and the entire ecosystem by surprise, and the consequences are unprecedented. You know, as an economy, the growth projections are muted. We are reading more and enough every day. The manufacturing industry, agriculture, aviation that contributes significantly to our economy is probably working at below 50% productivity at the moment. However, in midst of all this adversity, there is a silver lining, and which is visible very, very clearly to some of the analysts and consulting companies like PwC, which I represent. We see a big opportunity that is coming our way, and analysts are calling it accelerated digital adoption, especially in our country with high population density, focus on manufacturing and agriculture, internet technologies, smart cities. The industry is preparing itself to adopt to digital in a big way. And here by digital, I do not mean technology. It's actually a combination of people, process, and technology. There is a strong sense of immediacy and urgency, as if it was required on a yesterday basis. Uh, think about this Arogya Setu app. Okay, straight 7 days, government rolled it out, and today I am reading in the newspaper. Very soon, it is going to be becoming mandatory even in the private sector. So many of them are questioning the security part of it. Some call it detective app and not a bodyguard app. That was the whole intent. Nevertheless, in PwC, we have come out with a kit called Factory Startup Kit. Okay, so what is going to happen very soon is the factories will now go back to the 100% production stage, and there is again going to be that high level of productivity that is expected. But then the day-to-day operations are definitely going to change. So the companies now want us to develop something which can work on an automated way. So in the Arogya Setu app, you will see that many of the things are dependent on your self declaration. Okay, now what we have come out with is an automated temperature detection system, and whenever you are entering a factory or a premise, you automatically your body temperature and your proximity to the people that you're coming in close contact with, that is recorded and sent to the HR. So these are some of the immediate needs that the industry has today. There is another digital fitness app which we rolled out in last 7 days, and I can tell you 60 companies have signed up with us last 7 days. So last 72 hours, some of my team members and I have not slept because we are working day and night to cater to this, the sense of urgency and immediacy. The fitness app is both for the employees, normal citizen, and also for industry at large. What it does, it tells you what is your current digital maturity. Are you mature enough in terms of your technology enablement? Second is mindset. You see, technology adoption is also great deal about your mindset. So maybe our parents and people who have crossed 60 or 70 years, you will see that there will be a great deal of reluctance in adopting some new technologies. So we also say that the mindset has to change. All right. So bottom line, there is a resurgence of interest by large manufacturing, mining, and energy companies. I just wanted to leave one interesting requirement that has come from the shipping industry. Many of us use this aircraft tracking software, right? Whenever you're sitting in an airport, you wonder when is your plane going to land, and you log into Flight Radar 24 and you see your flight is somewhere, let's say 100 kilometers away, and it is going to land in few minutes or hours. What about shipping industry? Do you see any app today where you can figure out how many ships are there in and around Mumbai region? I was quite amazed to realize that there is no such app that exists today that gives somebody the ability to track the ships that are sailing in the ocean. And so this company which approached us, they have some 500 ships. They say that, can you devise a mechanism where on a single screen I'm able to see all these ships moving from point A to point B, what is the condition of the ship, what is the weather pattern. So you can imagine it is such an interesting use case. This was definitely required, and we should have worked on it by now. But as an industry, somewhere we have missed it. So some of the best minds in PwC are now working to come out with this shipping solution. And we have GPS as a technology, we have MES, and so many other technologies that on a combined basis can actually cater to this industrial need. So in my view, there is going to be a huge surge in the demand of the technology, and we really need trained technical resources. And the timing is perfect, I would say, to align ourselves and upskill. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Ankur, for that insight. In fact, I would suggest that our audience here can actually, avail and download that digital fitness app that Ankur just mentioned to test and see, gauge what your skills are, where you stand in the larger scheme of things in terms of, your technical skill sets. Now, with that, we'd like to move over to Dr. Indranil Mitra, and we'd like to hear his perspective on the current scenario and the relevance of emerging technologies in the given circumstances.
Thank you, Vishnupriya, and thank you, Ankur and Somo, for telling everything that I want to tell, but that's fine. So I think in the coming days, because of this COVID, if I can divide it between before Corona and after Corona, I think human behavior will decide the course of the technology change which is coming. A few years back, when we started to use Google Maps, I mean, see from few years back to now, how the map has changed, right? You can actually decide your timing of going to office or to college or to wherever your destination is based on the traffic on the road. So based on human behavior, I think a lot of things will change right now. And digital, as both the eminent panelists pointed out, will drive that change. I will say, how many of us did actually hear of social distancing even a couple of months back? I mean, it's just a couple of English words. It has a complete different connotation after staying 2 months in a lockdown and a global pandemic. There are apps now which are coming out which are distinguishing between people walking very close to each other, or they're maintaining some that said 6 feet or 8 feet distance between two individuals. What were the apps that we used during these times? The global picture has both been said by Shomo and Ankur. I'll just focus on some of the things that we did when we were in lockdown. We were ordering groceries from things like Big Basket or a Grofers, and most of the time the slots were not available, but that's a supply chain issue. But we could actually get our food sitting at home. We could order some food. We can order medicines. I mean, in Kolkata, there's an app where you can even check out the status of an ambulance. It's known as Pathoshati, and before the Pathodisha, sorry, and before that, it was basically used to track buses in real time. Think about buses in Indian roads. How difficult to track the right time of arrival of a bus at a particular location in the busy Indian cities. So I think going forward, digital is the only way. Like we are communicating right now. This could have been held in a big hall with a lot of audiences. 500 odd people who have joined from various sectors, sitting in chairs and listening to people giving their speeches over a dais, right? But right now we're sitting at our homes and connecting. So this digital adoption has been, I think, accelerated by this paradigm shifting event that has occurred. So many new technologies have brought these things to fruition, I should say. As Ankur said, digital, as Shomo said, cloud. I mean, without these things and the analytics, the dashboards that we see that US has so many new cases today. India is going through 26%. What should I say? Cure rate. Every day it's changing. It's on real time. Data is streaming. Everybody is using either their phone, their apps, Arogya Setu. How is it getting done? Somebody is doing it, right? So these technologies were not available even a few years earlier. These technologies are helping you survive such global serious events, which are a life and death situation. And as our panelist and Vishnupriya is also mentioning, these things will improve and go beyond what is their state today. And more they progress, we will need more resources, more skills, and more manpower to support all these things. Shomo represents one of the biggest IT companies in the world. Onco represents one of the biggest consulting companies in the world. All are human dependent, and they have to evolve. The evolution will come through people. They will drive the change, but the students who are now either attending or the professionals who are attending, the skills that are going to help them would be, because I was very curious to know that what I can sail through this in my present skill sets. We didn't have a question which could say that what are the skill sets that you have. But I'll be pleasantly surprised if there are a lot of technology and digital people here. But even if there are, I think digital 2.0 has moved to digital 3.2 right now. And skills like data analytics, statistical modeling, AI, machine learning, cloud, IoT have to be adopted by people, have to be adopted by industry, and even education organizations. So that's my take, and the rapid digitization is happening, but now it has accelerated. So I think thanks to that, we are going through a full digital makeover, if I could say so. Thank you.
Thank you
Over
so much. Thank you so much for that insight into the current scenario. And all of you, I mean, we started off with Shomo, who talked about the vertical depth as well as the horizontal depth of knowledge, which will be of use for our students. Then Onku talked about several applications. So therefore, you have to be on top of things to understand how things work and what are the requirements of the business. Because today speed is of the essence, and that is what he was perhaps driving at. And of course, then, supplemented by what Dr. Mitra said. So it reminds me of what Charles Darwin actually had said, that it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor is it the most intelligent, but it is those who are adaptable to change. And that is what this young generation is all about. They are agile and they are adaptable. So now with that, we would like to move into the second part of this discussion. And you will again get to see a question on the screen. And we would give you about, say, 20 seconds or so to answer that. And after which we will take the discussion forward. Meanwhile, I do hope you all are sending in your questions through the chat box so that we can take them up after we are done with the discussion. So the question that has appeared, as you can see, is, in such a scenario, which new technology skills would you want to acquire? Blockchain, cloud services technologies, cybersecurity, data sciences, artificial intelligence and machine learning, and Internet of Things. So you can take your pick and select whatever is relevant for your purpose. So as you can see on the screen, we have the maximum number of respondents voting for data sciences, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. And this is followed by cybersecurity and cloud services technology and blockchain and and Internet of Things, and then of course blockchain. So let me move on to Dr. Indranil Mitra and ask him to give us some insights. What is AI all about? Machine learning, data sciences. Of course, we know about all these dashboards that are being built, but if you can throw a little more light on this entire science.
Sure. Thank you, Vishnupriya. So it's heartening to see people thinking that data sciences and cloud and these things will be important again. What is data science? Basically, it's an interdisciplinary field that uses scientific methods, mathematical modeling, statistical modeling to extract insights from the data that generates from all over the place right now. So let me give you some example without going into a lot of technology stuff. All of us use different apps that, as I was speaking, like an Ola or an Uber, Amazon, OTT platforms like Prime and Netflix. So whenever you start interacting with these kind of apps, the next time that you log in, you see something which is similar to that you've seen. So they start tracking your behavior. Depending on your behavior, they start giving you what could be a similar thing, like a book that you've read. Maybe it's a thriller or it's an adventure book. The next time they will refer some authors who have written on this similar genre. If you see some movies, maybe Hindi movie or a Telugu movie, it's an action film, and so they will do some magic behind. And next movie that you see on your reference list is that, why don't you see this movie? This is similar. It has better action and kind of those things. So where does this all come from? This comes from your touch points, which generates data, and that data has some algorithms running behind which track your behavior, understands how you as a human being behave individually, and gives you its preferences back to you. So depending on the amount of data that is being generated, I'm sure Shomu and Ankur will talk about it. So IoT and generates, even your mobile device is an IoT device, if I could say so, it generates so much data every minute and every second. And where does this data reside? It resides in a cloud or in a database which is hosted in a cloud or in some premise somewhere in the world. And what do you do with that data? You have to do something, otherwise it's just generation and nothing is happening out of that. So the science which takes all of this together and comes up with the patterns and the insights and presents it back to you for gainful use. I think if I could use very plain non-technology words, that is what the field of data science is all about. And artificial intelligence, going beyond, a little bit beyond data science, is making the machines behave as humans, and at a certain point they become at par with humans. I mean, there'll be a lot of other questions which will come up because of that. I'm waiting to get some questions like that. But artificial intelligence till now are in the predictive mode. I mean, if I just could take the COVID example, the models like CIER and the epidemiological models that are there, which are predicting uh, rate of progress and the rate of death which can happen in a country or a state or a region, is dependent on what was the data given and what it is going to predict tomorrow, is all that magic happening by that algorithm. So having a logical reasoning, mathematical and analytical ability, and clear understanding of the domain that you're working with will help you to become good data scientists and data engineers and be very relevant in the days that are coming. So that is a large, or a 30,000 feet description of data science and AI. Machine learning is also a part which evolves into AI, but machine learning primarily would be to teach a machine how a human behaves, right? So we teach our kids that when they start growing up and they start understanding alphabets or objects, so if they see a chair, and we teach them that this is a chair, it has 4 legs and a sitting area and there's a backrest. Anytime they see a structure like that, they will understand that's a chair in whatever shape or form. It could have a different name, it could be a Kentucky chair, it's a cane chair or whatever, but it will be a chair. That's how a machine also starts learning. I will give 10,000 pictures and the machine, in the 10,001 time, it will say it's a chair, or it will know it's a cat. So making the machine learn through mathematical processes is the way of machine learning. So hopefully I've been able to put some idea
Yes,
around.
in fact, what I was thinking was that when you're talking about data sciences and AI, ML, responsible being, the ethical aspect of it is also something that perhaps students would need to factor in. With that,
Sure.
I'd just like to move on to Ankur, and we've seen students voting for IoT as well as cyber security to some extent. So if you could just tell us the relevance and why is it so important in today's day and time?
Sure. Thanks, Vishnupriya. Friends, as a fundamental concept, IoT is about connecting two machines, or a machine and a human being, or multiple machines with multiple human beings. So it's all about connected world. However, there are multiple interesting use cases that we are seeing around us. For example, smart car, connected cars, smart cities, smart factories. So everything is becoming smart, as if it was a dumb piece of device or an equipment, and now the route to transformation is only through a smart way. So everything has to evolve, everything has to become smart. And as they say, in God we trust and rest bring data. And here we are saying rely only on the machine generated data and not the human data. That's a fallacy, but that is how the world is moving towards. And Indranil talked about Google-based route mapping, as if we didn't know what was the shortest route to go from point A to point B, and now Google has to tell us which is the shortest route, and that is more or less becoming the norm in the future. Let me give you a very quick example. Many of us travel by trains, right? And 10 years back, if I were to take a night train, I would call up a call center and I would ask, "Ye train kitne baje aa rahi hai?" And in all probability, first of all, I'll have to try 10 times, and then the answer that I get is not at all satisfactory. I still go and land up at the station. I realize that the train is delayed by 2 to 3 hours. It has happened many times with me. Fast forward in today's situation, what you do, you just open the IRCTC app and you plug in your train number and you say what is the current location, probable time by which the train is scheduled to arrive at your station. And I can tell you that plus minus 10 minutes here and there, it will be more or less accurate. And IRCTC, to my mind, is one of such biggest example that our country has. So what is happening actually? So you would imagine the trains are now tracked using RFID technology. As it crosses a station or some level crossing, there is another RFID antenna that is continuously reading the passing of a train. Okay, and in the cloud, all the data is now being processed in the cloud. It is also running predictive algorithms to predict how much time is this train going to take to reach at your destination. So it is a great example of collaboration between multiple technologies coming together. The another piece of information that I would like to share is Delhi Mumbai Industrial Corridor. You know, this is one of the biggest implementation of emerging technology that our country can ever imagine. Multiple billions of dollars have been pumped in building this corridor, Delhi Mumbai Industrial Corridor, as a smart corridor, and I was very, very privileged to be part of this project right from design to implementation. So what is happening here? The freight containers that land at any of the port, and here it is Jawaharlal Nehru Port in Mumbai, which carries some 40 to 45% of our inbound container traffic. Those containers are tracked from their origin to the destination on a second-to-second basis. How is it happening? It is a combination of RFID, it is a combination of camera, GPS technology, and then machine learning and artificial intelligence happening on the back end. You will be surprised to know that the algorithm takes into account the road conditions. In many stretches, the roads are bad, and so the speed of the container goes down. So what happens is the algorithm also takes care of those stretches and predicts a time by which this container is going to reach to the destination, which in all probability is either a Mundra port or a Faridabad port. This is one of the biggest examples. So technologies will have to work in a collaborative manner. There are multiple examples that are happening around us, and I think the ship example that I gave, the train example, there is another, and you can go and Google search what you call Freight Operation Information System, FOIS. This is extremely powerful application that Indian Railways came out with, and again, great example of collaborative technology. So the machine learning, IoT, artificial intelligence, cloud, this has to collaborate and provide a solution to the end customer. And if we are able to do things right, we will also be able to predict. You must have read in today's newspaper, there was this big chemical leak in a factory in Visakhapatnam. Many people died, right? If I had the ability to predict such kind of a chemical leak, many of the lives would have got saved. November 2019 in Uttar Pradesh, there was a big blast in a boiler in a power plant. 32 lives were gone. So what is happening there in a power plant? This has the best of the technology that is implemented. The point I'm making is today's technology enables you to predict accidents, predict disaster, save human lives. So the power of the technology is extremely strong today. And here by IoT, friends, I do not mean Arduino or Raspberry Pi as is the common understanding among the ecosystem that we have seen. Here I'm talking about advanced technologies, which is 5G, narrow broadband or LoRa technology, LTE, Zigbee, PLCs, MES systems, and all of those. So finally, when we in PwC and our mission is to solve important problems in this society, and that includes industry, we look at hiring extremely bright students who have the awareness to these industrial use cases and not merely theoretical knowledge, but also have understanding of some of the industrial technologies, so as to say. What is the awareness of 5G or 4G? What is the power of all these technologies, and putting in some innovative mind to come out with very good solution. So as I said, the awareness to emerging technology and the mindset towards agility and orientation is the key, right? With that, I'll just pass it on to Vishnupriya.
Thank you so much, Ankur. That's very useful and relevant. We move to Shomo now, and we've heard both Indranil and Ankur talking about the man and machine. So what, according to you, I mean, giving, if you would have to take the big picture into consideration, do you think there'll come a day where the machine will rule over man and be much smarter than man, as it were?
Yeah, I think there should not be any fight between this automation and the human being. I think so the automation will actually help the human race. And I personally think Ankur has beautifully summarized the opportunity of the IoT and the automation aspects for that. And there is a great debate between Elon Musk and Jack Ma, and they said that Jack Ma said that machine cannot take over human being. That's his belief. And Elon Musk says that it is already dead, because in a chess, the grandmaster cannot beat a supercomputer. So it's already proved that that's a game which cannot be win by a human being. So there's two different aspects for that. And I got fortunate enough to get into one Tesla car when I was in US. And it's very interesting stuff. When I get into the car, the Pal Pal Dil Ke Paas has started. So I loved it. So I told the drivers, thank you very much for playing this for me. And he said, it's not me. It's actually Tesla who's playing it for you. So I said, means? He said, no, I give your name and your destination from US to India. So he picks up the music. And I have seen there's a dashboard in there. There's a Manna De, Kishore Kumar and all that stuff. And we are all engineers, disbeliever. What is happening? We try to figure it out. What is wrong in that? So I asked him, if I going to Japan now, is it that he will pick up a Japanese music and then play it for me? The answer was yes. He said he has the intelligence, what Ankur was mentioning, what Indranil was telling. There is too much of data today. So there is no dearth of data. The problem is how to get an insight with the data and what is the right data for you. That is extremely important to get rid of that bad part of it. So I don't think so. We should be afraid of that machine will take over of us. I think so. It is a coexistence model which will work beautifully, and we innovate. I'm yet to see a machine innovate us. So I don't think so. It is. Though Elon Musk, I love Elon Musk anyways, but I don't think so that is going to happen. just to end with this, what Ankur has also mentioned. So we talk about, and we are getting older, right? So we talk about the brilliant use cases, but you people start somewhere, whether it is a small IoT device, what you can automate in your house, something, please do that. I think so that's a starting point of all of you. And then you innovate. Because if you wait for a big things to come and you don't start, I think probably that day will not come, that you will start. And you are the people who are the young, bright, who can think out of box. So Apple, when Apple 6 was launched, a 13-year boy actually broke it, not any Harvard pass out guys and all that. So innovation comes from that level. So just keep that in mind and keep flying.
Thank you, Shomo. In fact, it is then what all three of you have been saying is eventually and ultimately it's the idea that matters, because Ankur was talking about shipping, and we are yet to still innovate and come up with certain technologies that can help in that shipping space. Now, in the interest of time, we'll move on to the third section, and you will again get to see a question on the screen, and we'd like you to respond to it. Here goes. Which mode of learning and working do you prefer? Virtual, physical, or hybrid? So you can select either of these, any one of them. And then we move on to the final part of the discussion. Okay, so if we could just have the answers. Well, everybody has very rightly said and voted for hybrid. So I would like to quickly move on to Shomo and get his perspective on this hybrid or blended mode of learning. And considering that there are people working remotely from home, and this remote delivery actually is to ensure business continuity, and TCS very much being in the news about this. So if you could just tell us a little bit in maybe 2 or 3 minutes at best, or less, and then we'll move on to the other speakers.
Thank you for setting my time. Vishnu, yeah, so I think so TCS is inherently changed his model in overnight. So we have almost 4.5 lakhs of people across the globe, and we have one fine morning in a COVID, we have decided that 90% of the people will actually work from home. So imagine the amount of preparation we have to gone through. It is not that we have never worked from home, but it's not the 90% of the people actually work from home. So I normally say if a use case works in India, it will work anywhere, just because of the sheer volume of that. So what we have done, there are a lot of things we need to do. We have to implement softwares in all the machines. It has to remotely securely, because it's a customer data, right? Are you securing the data when you actually take the laptop out? Because customers also want them to work within a building itself, and so they are also coming out from that. Again, the technology comes a huge role in that, how to encrypt the data. So how you are protecting the data that it should be copied from somewhere, how to remotely log into a desktop and work. So all these things has been invoked in a day. And I will end up with that one beautiful thing what one of my son's friend told me, that you don't allow us to take my cell phone in the school. So now actually the school is inside my cell phone. So I think so that's an interesting aspect as well.
Yes, I'm sure it is, because considering that everybody has now moved online, schools, colleges. So Ankur, what is your take on this?
My view is it has to be looked from three perspectives. One is flexibility, second is the effectiveness, and lastly, of course, economics. And I'll come briefly touch upon each of these perspectives. If I focus on learning, and specifically, I think the question was on learning, whether it is a virtual or physical or a combination of virtual and physical. Institutes today offer very, very flexible timings in terms of offering the courses. And this is becoming very prevalent in our country. I have seen this in US. Almost all the universities run courses 24/7, and I was pretty surprised when I did my advanced program from Kellogg. Night 2 o'clock, I had the option to go and attend to a virtual lecture, and 8 o'clock in the morning, I was required to go and submit my home assessment, and again purely on a virtual mode. So effectively, I'm utilizing my entire day very, very flexibly. I can go and work out as per my time. I can go and attend, choose the timing which is most suitable for me. So flexibility is extremely critical. Number two is effectiveness. Today's online courses has a big advantage in terms of knowledge retention. So these are mostly run in form of modules. You can download, play these modules, go back to the place where you think there is some doubt you have in your mind, and replay those specific sections. You need not have to go through the entire class only to get clarified that your particular small piece of unclarity. So in my mind, effectiveness is proven in terms of online delivery of courses today. Third is economics. You save a lot of time in going to your classes, both in terms of logistics as well as time cost. So I would say there is great deal of advantage in terms of virtual training. However, there is a caution. Virtual cannot literally replace the charm or the essence of sitting in a classroom and listening to a teacher, student to student interaction or student to teacher interaction. This is only possible when it is a physical setup. So to my mind, yes, hybrid is something that is most suitable. Take a call, and it depends upon what kind of course and what kind of institute you are getting enrolled to. That's my
Thank
view.
you so much. What about Indranil? What do you have to say about this before we move on to the questions?
Yeah, so again, something like Shomu happened to me. People are trying to stop me, but anyway. So greenfield universities like JG are poised at the right time, at the right place kind of scenario to take these hybrid models and the new age technologies together and give it to the student communities which are upcoming. In universities like JG, we have 24/7 uh, classroom facilities, both virtual and in campus life, as Ankur was saying, that it's a intrinsic part of any student. Plus, the idea of bringing industry to the institute and starting collaborative programs with the students is one of the new age thoughts which these greenfield universities and JGU is starting, which will help. I think one of our panelists, maybe Ankur, spoke about it, that if industry is not involved and they do not bring in the problems that are being faced by them on a day-to-day basis, and they do not bring the new workforce into solving those issues, then it will not be collaborative and the students will not grow. And besides the technology skills that are there, if the university or the teaching uh, organization gives them the soft skills like speaking, I mean, when we are on long virtual calls like this, there are some decorum and there are some things that we need to maintain and understand, and how to carry forward long discussions. So with technology, some soft skills, if our education institutes impart to them, I think that'll be great. I mean, that is why at JGU we also have liberal arts being given to students who can take up maybe constitution, maybe take up law and economics and communication with the heavy duty technology courses that are coming the students' way. Uh, Teaching in a collaborative hybrid fashion will obviously now be the vogue, and it will be standards in the coming days. As Ankur said, 24/7, you can utilize all of your day. So I think organizations which are coming forward like JGU will play a very crucial role in the upcoming skill force of India. And I have heard that a lot of foreign universities are also trying to collaborate with universities in India. They will also, I think we'll see a lot of students moving into India to study under the same kind of environment that global universities give.
Thank you. Thank you, Indranil. Now, without further ado, let me just move directly into the questions because they are connected to what we've just discussed. I'll take the first question, which is here. How useful are the various MOOCs and online certifications in advancing our careers? The question is on online certifications. Any of you can give me the answer and help the students here.
I can
How
take that.
useful? Yes, please go ahead.
I think extremely useful these days, and there are two ways of taking these online classes. One, you can just audit and learn from it. Maybe you don't need a certificate, but for career advancement and also to show, I mean, we believe in a lot of marks and mark sheets and stuff like that, and also some credentials to show behind it. These universities also give you certificates if you actually do all their coursework. You finish their assignments in time, and they actually measure that time, like Coursera or the edX or Una Academy, and there's so many of them there which are reputed. So and it also, you can learn on your own time, right? And whatever is required by you, you could take a philosophy course with a machine learning course, you can do a capstone project which may not be available at the universities right now. They are also changing, but the pace of change that you can do on your own and the pace of change that the organization will bring in will differ. So I think it's very, very important to look for the right course for your right career advancement. Thanks.
Thank you so much. I'll move to the next one. What about the future of education? Can we see digital schools moving away from the brick and mortar structure? Would Shomo like to take that up?
I personally again think you answer your own question, that I think so the hybrid will be important, but I personally think it will be more online and less of a physical. But I think what Ankur said is right. It's not only the education, it is also an interaction with the human beings, right? Because when you go to office and all that, we see that human interaction is extremely important. How you talk to the people, how you smile to the people. So it's a both, that your knowledge plus the way you interact with the people. So I think it's not an end of brick and mortar, but I feel brick and mortar needs to be innovate a little bit to make it an hybrid scenario. So I answer it like that.
Okay, thank you. So in the interest of time, we will take up two more questions. I move quickly to the third one, which says, will the students get an opportunity to study under professors from other universities? I think this question is possibly directed maybe at Indranil, if you can take that up.
I think, yes. If I could just speak about JG University, they are in the process with tying up with some of the best universities in the world. They're also looking for faculties from across the globe. As much as I am in the know of things, I could tell they are getting some of the best faculties who have done their PhDs in some of the best colleges and universities globally, starting maybe from New York State or Boston or MIT. They're also tying up with some of the best universities here in Singapore, in Canada, in Australia, from where they could have collaborative programs. And yes, we will have, the university will have professors and faculties coming from various different institutes of global repute.
Thank you, Indranil. The next one, what kind of labs will be set up? So maybe Ankur, if you could throw some light on that kind of labs that we can expect going forward.
Right. So the best I know of is these lab. First of all, is a state-of-the-art lab that has industrial flavor. When I say industrial flavor, it will simulate many of the things that are happening on a factory shop floor. The machines, of course, cannot be set up in a laboratory, but the process control equipment that processes machine data, platforms, the Internet of Things platform over cloud, and the analytics engine that is running along with machine learning, everything in a collaborative way is being set up in this laboratory. The students will also get exposed to multiple scenarios. So if industry does not have a fixed set of problems, right? You move from one industry vertical to the other, the set of use cases change almost 70 to 80%. So the university is also planning to bring in all those, let's say, the most important challenges that the industry is facing, and the students will be exposed to real hands-on experience as to see how to bring in an innovative solution at a fast and agile way.
Thank you, Ankur. Now, in the interest of time, we will just take one final question because I think it will be relevant for most of our audiences here. The question is, artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, data science can have a future. Can they all be my career? Or likewise, is there any field which does not consist of all of these? So essentially talking about the interconnectedness of technologies, can they all be part of one's career? So any of you can take this last one.
I think
I will try to put a stop on that. No. So it's a very close to my heart question actually. So I personally think yes, and I think so that orchestration. I normally tell it's a technology orchestration what needs to happen, and I compare it with the way our mother cooks. So you need all the ingredients to make it a food ready, right? I think so that orchestrated system is extremely important. And don't only talk about an AI, ML, cloud and all that. And there is an inherent resistance of a lot of students when they join and they say, I will not work in the technology which is old. To me, I don't think so it's an old technology. The bigger, I quote one, Anil Kumble said, I be in the journey, so I know it. So if you do not know the evaluation of a technology, it will be extremely difficult to you also to adapt something new. So I think so it is extremely important to be open-minded and have that orchestration mindset of any technology which is coming to in our way. That's the answer.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Now, as it's time for us to close the session, I just wanted to thank all our speakers for their very insightful thoughts and very comprehensive way of presentation. And as is obvious, the world is becoming increasingly interconnected, and there are different people from all parts of the world working together, both in online mode, offline mode, the hybrid models that our speakers have talked about. So given these turbulent times, if I could just go back to the title of our topic, it reminds me of the saying that you can't control the winds, but you can adjust the sails. So in this scenario, if one was equipped with the relevant technology skills, it could be a combination of all these emerging technologies, then I'm sure he or she will be equipped enough to sail through and steer clear of any brewing storm. So with that, we'd like to call it a day, and we come to the end of the session. We do hope that you have found some relevant key takeaways from the session. It's been useful for you, and we look forward to having more such sessions in the future. So thank you, Ankur. Thank you, Shomo. Thank you, Indranil. And thank you, the organizers.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's wonderful. Everybody take care and be safe. Thank you.